This is Run the Day with Rafe
and Tay.
We're runners, we're married, and now we've got a podcast. Why? Because we love running so much that we wanted to share it with you, our friends.
Today's topic, we're going to answer tips and tricks on how to embrace cold outdoor running.
Specifically, we are answering a question sent in by Sam saying, could you offer tips for embracing outdoor running as the temperatures start to drop?
This past winter was the first time I think we really were running in very cold outdoor temperatures, like on the road. And it was actually when a lot of people were training for the Boston Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen so many dedicated runners like in the winter outside.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I feel like as runners, we complain about running in the heat, and then we complain about running in the cold. So I guess maybe there's this like really small window of when we enjoy running, which is probably like early fall, like around now, right? But in terms of the other times, it's all about just adjusting. And I think that's our intention today, to give you a little bit of guidance and lessons we've learned from experimentation of how you could still enjoy running when the weather starts to get colder.
Yeah. And I think the key is that it will depend on, there's specific tips and tricks on when it gets really hot and then when it gets really cold. And I think one big thing for both that you have to adjust is gear. So maybe let's talk a little bit about adjusting your gear and like your clothing when the weather starts to get cold.
Yeah. I think we learned around last year that a good rule of thumb is to dress as if it's 10 to 20 degrees warmer than the actual temperature. Reason being is you are going to sweat. Your body is sweating to prevent itself from overheating. So naturally, you're going to be a little bit warmer than if you were just going outside, just to walk or stand around. So I think that's been a good rule of thumb that's helped us, is to just adjust to the temperature. And before I let you chime in, one more thing I'll say is that I think this even varies from workout to workout. If you're going outside and you're running and it's just an easy run, you're just logging easy miles, you might dress a little bit warmer than you would if you were going outside and you were doing a speed workout. Reason being, you're going to sweat more, you're going to be hotter. And I think I've learned that the hard way, and I feel like you have too.
Yeah. So are you saying like if it's 40 degrees out, dress like it's 50 degrees?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know what the perfect amount is, but I feel like we do like 10 to 15, but 10 to 20 is the range. So if it was 40, it's like low 50s is how I would treat it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I think like most of the time, I don't think any runner goes out there and they're like, I dressed perfectly for this.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. It really is.
So I think that something to think about is instead of like wearing like a super heavy jacket when you're going out there, you're gonna be freezing at first, right? Like you might be like, oh my gosh, it's so cold out, I'm not warmed up. But then once you do get out there, you're warmed up, like you're saying, in the middle of your run, maybe especially if you're doing a speed workout, you're gonna start to sweat and then you might overheat.
For guys and girls, I think even though it is tough sometimes to shell out the money for quality running gear, I do think it's worth it. I'm sure you could say as a woman and me as a man, even like as a man, having a couple good pairs of leggings, like tights you could wear when running outside is going to go a long distance. Then just, I think previous to last year, would invest in like cheaper stuff I could find at like Marshalls, a pair of pants that's like actually not doing the job that I needed to do. And I'm glad to have worked, at a company and invested in products that I feel like last a little bit.
What's the difference between you're saying these like cheaper tights or shirts that you would wear versus like the quality? Like what are we looking for?
Well, I think sometimes if like, you don't want to be in any type of fabric that's just going to like absorb your sweat, because there's nothing worse than just like feeling like cold sweat being like on your body and it's heavy. It feels like you're dragging along like water weight with you. So I would say something that's breathable, that's moisture wicking, and then also, we've talked about too, but that's reflective sometimes. Like when we were kids, I feel like reflective gear was like you had to look like a traffic cone. And now I will say I feel like the industry has done a good job that there's more subtle but still I guess like protective things to keep you visible since you're running in the dark. Yeah,
because now that it gets a little bit darker earlier, that definitely makes sense. So avoiding cotton,
and then I think if you're going to prioritize, all of it's important, but I think like headgear, right? A good like hat that's breathe. This is still something I feel like I'm experimenting with, is that some of these snow hats that don't have like a mesh or breathable material to them, I feel like I'm overheating because so much heat is coming out of my head when I'm running, and it just makes me like start to like really overheat and cramp up. Personally.
Yeah, something that I think really helped me is wearing like that ear, like it's like a headband, but it covers like your ears.
Yeah.
I love running with that because I think it allows my head to feel like cool still.
Yeah.
And I overheat a lot when I wear a hat. So doing that, but I've also ran in the freezing winter when it's like slush and it's like kind of raining, it's freezing. I'll put an actual like running hat on to protect myself from like the rain.
Yep.
And then also the ear warmer on top of it. So I did both, and that actually was like perfect for like a really cold winter. But like this kind of weather, if it's getting cold, just like the head warmers covering my ears, I like those a lot.
Gloves is huge. Right? Just to keep I feel like your hands are the first thing that gets cold.
Yeah. And there's also, those are also easy to take off if you do get really hot. Yeah, true. You could put them in like a running belt or a jacket pocket.
True. Socks, I feel like sometimes you got to double sock up there. But more so, I feel like this one you don't have to do, but it's a nice to have. There's some shoes that have like a moisture repellent fabric on them so that they keep your socks from getting, so your socks don't get wet.
What's one of those?
Well, I know from Saucony, that's the Run Shield, but that exists. Like every major running brand has those.
And it like prevent like your feet from getting wet, like from slush and stuff like that.
I think that originated from like trail stuff. Like Gore-Tex is on like, Nike and all these brands. So could be worth the investment. But, for the most part, we've been out there running with wet socks. You double sock up and, it sucks. But
I feel like I need to invest in the Run Shield because I don't have any.
It's not like it's perfect, I'll say. It helps.
Yeah, because nothing's worse than like your socks are really wet. So I guess that's why it's good to have maybe like those performance type socks.
Yeah.
Instead of like regular cotton. Yeah. Which again, like, so like cotton on your body, like
get rid of cotton.
If you're sweating, like it's going to get cold. It's just going to absorb and you're just going to have like a chill. Sock, same thing.
Talk to me about warming up in cold weather.
Kind of like easing into that, because when you step outside, if you dress like it's 10 degrees warmer, when you first step out there, you're gonna be like, I'm freezing. It's really cold. So it's really important to make sure you're actually very warmed up, which I feel like maybe a lot of people skip before going for a run, especially like when it's warm outside. You just kind of get out there and your warm-up jog is your warm-up.
Yep.
Making sure that your muscles are warm and you're actually like sweating before you get outside, right? Like make sure you take the time to stretch, do a dynamic warm up. You don't want to be out there cold because then you're going to get hurt. And also it will be hard to adjust to the cold temperature out there. Yeah. You need to get like the blood flowing in your body warm.
Curious your standpoint, because I feel like a lot of times we're overcomplicating things, especially with social media and stuff, that to me, a warm up, yes, we could talk about what drills to do to activate and all this stuff, but I feel like we're often overlooking the fact that a warm-up is intended to be sweating before the activity. So to me, I don't know how you feel about it. Obviously, there's certain drills that are better to do depending on who you are as a person. But I feel like the priority number one is just, am I warm? Am I sweating?
Yeah.
If it's you dancing in your living room and that gets you sweating, then I feel like, you did your job.
Yeah, I like to think of it as you're activating your muscles before you get outside. So, and I like the word activating because I think sometimes when people think about stretching before they go for a run, they think about like static stretching, like elongating their muscles, but you want to get them activated. You want to get them warmed up. So doing some, knee hugs and like, I know you said not getting into specific exercises, but if you think about activating your muscles and waking them up, I think that's a better perspective to have. So when you go out there and it's cold out, you're not hurting yourself and you're preventing injury and you're adjusting better to the cold temperature out there. Yeah,
I agree. So something I learned from Coach Bennett a while ago.
From the Nike Run Club?
From the Nike Run Club app, is adjusting to the wind, especially in colder condition workouts, because the wind often is the thing that sucks the most. So when you can, I can't say I do this all the time because it takes a decent amount of planning and preparation, which is sometimes exhausting, but to finish your workout with the wind behind you.
Oh, okay.
Because if you think about you're running out and, doing 5 miles, like 2.5 out, 2.5 back, and you really start to sweat at 2.5 miles, and then you turn around and run into the wind, you have all that like kind of cold sweat on your body and the wind's blowing into it. So that's a little tip. And I want to transition that and take that into your advice, because a lot of people, I think, when you're running in the cold, think, hey, I don't need to hydrate because I'm not really sweating. But what is your advice?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think when you're running in the cold temperatures, you forget how important it is to keep hydrating. So, like in the summer when it's really hot, of course you need to hydrate a little bit extra. And I'll always run with like a water bottle. But when you're in the winter, you still need to hydrate. So it's still something important that even though you may not be sweating so much and it may not be 90 degrees out, your body still needs water, and you're just going to perform better if you're hydrated. So just don't forget to do that before, during, after your runs.
They don't change your hydration. I mean, just keep doing. If you were hydrating well in the fall and the summer, like you said, summer's obviously a little bit harder, but to keep that in mind. Don't just fall off a cliff and be like, hey, it's cold, I don't have to drink water now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, something I have, which I used yours all the time, but I think is nice to have, is I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this, is when the air is cold. Yeah. It's very, I'm going to use the word sharp to inhale. That's how I feel. Sometimes you inhale and you're like, oh, it like kind of hurts to breathe it sometimes. It's so crisp. Is that a good word, sharp? Yeah, yes. You get the feeling I'm saying?
I totally get that.
It's kind of like stabbing you a little bit.
Especially when you're doing maybe a speed workout or a tempo, when you have intervals, like it's really hard sometimes when you're breathing in the air and it's so cold and it just kind of like hurts.
Yep. So Tay has one of these and I borrow hers, but also if you have like a neck warmer or a gaiter or a balaclava, I believe it's pronounced, sometimes it is nice. For me personally, I don't use it the entire workout, but it's nice to have the option to breathe in warmer air because it's just a little bit easier to take in sometimes, like to taste that, especially when you're at a state where you really need to take in a lot of oxygen. It's not always the easiest or more natural thing to be like deep inhalations when the air is really cold. So sometimes we'll do a workout, and to Tay's point, if I'm at the easier section of the workout, I'll run kind of mask down, right? Or other way around?
I do the other way around.
Yeah, I think I do the other way around too. Yeah. So if you're at the harder part of the workout,
it's just
you take
easier
the mask off. But I feel like it's a nice balance. Maybe it's just like
how you're feeling. It's nice to have the option. I think it's like
too much of it. Like I could do some of the cold air, but like when it's over like a 40-minute run, I'm like, gosh, I just want it to be easier to breathe for like 1 second.
I think it might depend, and I think you can do both. Because you're right. I think that maybe sometimes I will have it up if it's, I'm taking in a lot of oxygen, like the shorter breaths, if I'm doing like a tempo for a fast minute, maybe. Yep. Then you take it off for a minute, like you feel like you need to cool down. But it's just nice to have that warm air. And I actually learned this way back in college when I realized I was having like this like vocal cord dysfunction issue that they said it kind of related to asthma a little bit. But basically my vocal cords would close up. So I was breathing in like cold air, and they told me, the doctor told me like, you need to breathe in warm air. So like either like bring your shirt up or cover your mouth. And that's when I kind of learned like this like fleece neck warmer like really helped like tremendously. Cool.
Good. It's a good hidden fact to know.
Yes. And whether that's you breathe in the warm air during your fast interval or you're just the whole time doing your easy, like whatever works for you. But it's just nice to have that access just to quickly breathe in and be able to breathe in properly and like calmly. Yes, I love that point. Thanks for bringing that one up.
So let's talk about, before we go into a little story time, but real quick, about being patient with yourself and your paces as you go into the colder months. Yes.
I feel like so many people bring this up when it starts to get really hot. Everyone's like, oh, make sure you're patient with yourself, like adjust to the heat. You may not be able to run as long, or you may need to take breaks. But it's just as important when it gets really cold out. And you have to remember that you may not be able to run as fast, or you may not be able to go as far. Like if it's freezing out and maybe you didn't dress properly, just be kind to yourself, be patient, and know that like extreme weather will, dictate how your run goes. But that doesn't mean it doesn't count or you didn't do a good job.
Yep. So I got one little thing before we go into story time. Very simple thing. Obvious, but something like a mom or dad would tell you. Yeah. Is that when you get inside your home or wherever you reside from your runs, to get your clothes off, because no one wants to be sitting in those sweaty, cold clothes.
Then you're freezing.
When you're freezing. So you get home, you toss them things off and you hop in the shower.
Because like you're saying, you're sweating when you come back inside, even though it's actually freezing out.
Yeah.
But you're just sweating. So then you like, your clothes get cold. Kind of like we're talking about the cotton.
Your body's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
We want to keep you healthy.
Yes.
We want to keep you healthy. So those are our little tips that we hope, tips and tricks that help you run in the cooler weather. So, and just remember too, you're a badass if you're out there in the cooler weather. So sometimes maybe think about how you look to other people. People you run by, people driving in the cars or whatever. Yeah. And you're like, damn, this dude's a savage or this girl's a badass.
Yeah. And you know what? I know you're about to say a quick little story, but I'll say a super quick story if I could squeeze it in.
Sure.
Okay. I was going to say that last winter, I remember we were running and it was like a terrible day and only like 10 of us showed up to the run club on Saturday and it was like hailing. And I remember I actually took my phone out to take a video because I thought it was so funny. Like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
Yep.
And I ran by and some guy said next to me and he goes, "You're not going to want to remember this." And I laughed, but I thought about how I do want to remember this because it gave me such confidence months later, like on that beautiful spring day when we ran our second half marathon in Newport. And I was like, hey, like I made it through that 10-mile run in the winter. I ran so slow because there was slush everywhere and it was freezing. But I did it.
You did it.
And it gave me some confidence.
Yeah.
But I think Rafe has a really good story of experiencing overheating and not dressing properly. And this is one of the things that helped us learn how to adjust to the colder weather.
Yep. This was only last Thanksgiving. So I always like to give the context that we learn and then we share.
Yes.
So this isn't something I learned like centuries ago. Yeah. This was just last year. We are running a turkey trot race.
Yeah, local 5K.
Local 5K for pizza, having fun. And my attire, I had no clue what the hell to wear. I wore a long sleeve that was pretty kept you warm.
Yeah, performance material.
Yeah, it was a little performance material. I wore an insulated jacket. Mm-hmm. So that is trapping all that heat in there.
Yep. And the outside was kind of like rain jacket material.
Yeah, it's like meshy.
Yes. Which is good.
Snow hat, gloves, and I don't even remember what I wore. I think I had shorts on.
I was going to say,
I wore shorts.
But I think you had leggings under your shorts.
No, I don't think I had leggings under my shorts.
So you just had shorts, bare legs.
We get to the starting line. And this is one of those races. I'm not just running for fun. I'm toxic. I'm trying to run as fast as I can. So I get to the starting line and I'm like, yo, I fucked up because all these people lined up next to me are in singlets and like small running shorts and they have gloves on.
That's it.
So I'm like, these dudes, they're going to freeze their asses off. So we're like a mile into the race and I do not cramp. I really don't.
Yeah.
I got the worst cramp in my sides like that I've ever experienced. That like I've never wanted to stop so much during a 5K.
Oh my god!
So it's just a 5K, and it was just the most brutal experience from the start to the finish line. So I learned really quickly that, especially when you're racing, that trick that we talked about, temperature like 10 to 15 degrees, like that really applies. I think when you're running a race, if you can, it's like t-shirt or a tank top, it's shorts, it's gloves, some good socks on, and a hat. Mm-hmm. The rest of your body, like you would be shocked how warm your body gets, even in extreme conditions, especially when you're pushing it to its brink and having a high heart rate, you're sweating a ton. So that was... What?
All during a turkey race.
All during a turkey race. So that was an absolutely horrendous experience.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to share with you guys as the turkey trots come around. Do not, if you plan on pushing that thing and trying to win for your family and beat everyone, do not wear an insulated jacket and with a heavy shirt underneath it.
Yeah. Dress like it's 10 to 15 degrees warmer.
Yeah. So.
Lesson learned.
Anywho, that is today's episode. As always, we believe in you guys.
We believe in you.
And Tay, take it away.
Go run the day. Don't let the day run you.